An estuary is an area where there is an interchange with the marine environment, the Pacific Ocean. The example we'll be talking about today is the Eel River Estuary and its estuarine tributaries. It's a place where you have fresh water coming down out of the watershed, mixing with the salt water of the incoming tides.
The fresh water that is coming down out of the watershed, in the case of the Eel River, that drains 3,600 square miles. And it is an area that is about 5 miles in length and 5 miles in width for just a gross area for the estuary. And in it is a huge complex of plants, animals, birds, fish, and other aquatic organisms. It is a place where adaptation is constantly going on between the plant and animal community with the saline environment of the ocean and the fresh water that's coming down from the huge catchment, as we call them.
The Salt River project is really unique in many ways, but in one aspect of it is that it works, or has to be working, with 40 different landowners in the area. And a number of these landowners are producers in the area, primarily dairy producers and grazing cattlemen. And then the other portion that we're finding that need a lot of flood relief are actually residential people who live along the Salt River who experience flooding throughout the year on typical rain events. 30 years ago, this project started out as a flood relief project for residential areas and also for the agricultural producers. But as more and more partners became involved in this project, such as the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, NOAA, and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, those flooding needs were balanced with the needs for habitat restoration for fish and waterfowl, and then also developing a more diverse riparian habitat in the area.
What we're trying to do here is basically mimic a natural slough system and develop a plant palette based on what's happening in the wild. And so this plant palette was developed based on what we're seeing in the Eel River and what we think was historically present in the Salt River. Up on these active berms and these riparian benches, that's where we put in our riparian plant species, with Sitka spruce kind of being tucked more into the higher elevations, Pacific willow right down along the wetland brackish line, and in between that a variety of other trees including red alder and shrub species on the site.
Well, there's all sorts of species, but I'm only going to talk about fish species, since that's what I know best. And I was surprised. I've looked back at a few other studies over the years in the Eel River Estuary, 3 in particular, and each of those studies found between 24 and 30 fish species in the Eel River Estuary. Some of the listed species, the Endangered Species Act, both federal and state, they would cover Chinook salmon, coho salmon, steelhead trout. There's also tidewater goby, longfin smelt, and there are also other species of concern that aren't actually listed yet, but those would be things like the coastal cutthroat trout, green sturgeon, Pacific lamprey.